The podcast universe has exploded with amazing content for everyone to listen to. And there are so many incredible shows with just not enough time to listen to all of them. So if you're asking yourself, what do I listen to? The answer is real simple. Thrive Loud is the must-listen to, can't miss an episode, gotta hear what's next, most fun, energizing, and inspiring podcast show you'll ever encounter. With hundreds of episodes of guests ranging from CEOs, entrepreneurs, innovators, thought leaders, inspiring speakers to amazing humans, Thrive Loud is the real deal. Listen in as Lou Diamond decodes what makes incredible people thrive. If you're a regular listener, you already know this. And if this is your first time listening, get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have the head of Bator Training and Consulting, BTC, which offers sales, training, and hospitality consulting. He is a man that has developed the formula for business success, which he's going to share on our show today. I got a chance to meet this wonderful individual in San Diego, California. My bald brother from another mother, Kenneth Bator, is here on Thrive Loud. How are you, Ken? How's everything going with you?
I'm awesome, Lou. Thanks for having me on the show. And the only reason you like me is we've got the same barber.
we have the same barber, and we will definitely make sure that he gets credit for that. But Ken actually has something really cool. And I want the Thrive Loud listeners here to get a feel for this, because Ken is going to share with us a little bit about his book and about his formula, because I think the Thrive Loud community is going to love this message. So before we get into the formula, I want to hear a little bit about what you're working on right now and a lot of the messaging you're working with your clients, because I think our listeners will get a understanding of that part of you, and then we'll bleed into your formula. Sound cool?
Sounds cool. Yeah, basically, what I'm doing a lot of now is, especially this time of year, is strategic planning, which is part of that formula. It's one of the things that I've been doing for almost 20 years, which is kind of a funny little story behind that in and of itself. But it's one of the favorite things that I do in my business, because you go in and you work with clients, you work with a management team, sometimes a board of directors. You don't always even have a clear and black and white agenda. But you just lead them down a path to goals and finding out truly what's possible in their business. And by the end of it, these folks are usually 9 times out of 10, if I do my job right, and I usually do, they're just excited about moving forward with their business. So that's the number one thing I'm doing right now, and it's a ton of fun.
Okay, so let's let the listeners understand this. Share with the listeners your formula, and we're going to walk through each of its components, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. My formula is called B+C+S, and that simply stands for brand, culture, and strategy. In other words, what's the image we want to promote out in the public? What's the experience we need to create both for and through our employees? And how do we drive more of the right business to our business? That, to me, is brand, culture, strategy. And as I often joke, and I joked during the summit in San Diego, where I had the distinct pleasure to meet you, is, that came to me over years and years and years. I was never that guy that, got A's because they studied for 15 minutes and went into midterm or the final and, was able to get an A or an A plus. I got decent grades, but I had to work damn hard at it. I had to study for days, weeks in order to get it. And, for years and years and years, I always thought, all right, how does business really work? Because I would find that, especially in the early days in the 90s when I worked in corporate life, I would run towards a seminar on re-engineering, and then I would go and pick up a book on empowerment, and then I would, listen to somebody talk about Six Sigma. And all those things are good, don't get me wrong, but I always thought, how do we put all this stuff together? And over the years, it came to me, it's all about brand. What's the image we're promoting out in the public? It's all about culture, because we need to create an experience first for our employees so that we can create a meets or even better exceeds expectations for our customers, members, or clients, that we're driving people through our brand. And we need to have a strategy in order to drive the right business to our business, because you could have a great brand and you could have a great team, but if you're not driving the right business to your business and doing it profitably, you're still going to go down the tubes.
So, by the way, I love this formula. And when I first heard it from you, I said, I love the simplicity of it. But I also wanted to talk about branding, because I actually love helping companies connect the voice of their company, the brand of their messaging, and how it all comes together. Let's take an example of a culture or a formula of success that you've helped work with, and we could leave names out of it however you want, but I want to get like a good example of how you helped solve and utilize the formula to the success that it's achieved.
Sure. I will talk about one client that I had. It was actually a financial institution, a credit union. And for your audience that may or may not know what a credit union is, it's basically a non-for-profit bank. The customers are otherwise in this manner are called members, and they're actually part owners of that institution. But this particular credit union originally started off just serving police. And then they decided to serve firefighters as well, which isn't a huge stretch, but a little bit. And then they got the bright idea to begin serving government employees. And then the former CEO decided to start serving teachers. Which I still don't understand. So we've got four, very distinct groups, especially police and teachers. I've worked with police for years in a different capacity, and my dad was a teacher for almost 50 years, so I understand the mentality. And they're both great people, don't get me wrong, but they think very differently. And now we have this business that is trying to serve four different niches. And to use the formula, they had a very good strategy in terms of they set goals. They knew what they wanted to achieve operationally. They exceeded goals most often, in terms of loans and in terms of income and things of that nature. And their culture, which is usually, frankly, the biggest problem, but their culture was darn good. People actually wanted to go to work. They actually enjoyed being around each other. They did accomplish things. They did accomplish objectives. They had an experience where, sometimes you get this little nitpicky crap and everything else, but they actually did get along and achieve goals. So we had the C and the S really set, but their branding was so confusing because they said, all right, well, we're going to serve these teachers, but we're going in with a brand name and brand messaging that's all about police. And literally the first things teachers would say when they would go to events, when they would go to the schools is, well, why would I want to join a police organization? So they came to me, and to make a very long story short, what we did was we found, the commonality that, as hard as it is to serve these four different groups, what we came up with is that, the one thing that they all have in common is they all have tough jobs. And they should be able to bank at a place that understands their needs and where they can be comfortable, whether they're police and people are, not very happy with them because of the zeitgeist in in our society these days. Or teachers, unfortunately, in some areas are not very well liked. They wanted to create an environment where people would feel comfortable coming into any of their branches. And we needed to brand that in a way that would communicate that. So what we harped on is less on the name. The name we actually changed a little bit just to use the acronym, much like 3M, used to be Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. Now it's just 3M. So we changed the name to just use the acronym. So people didn't necessarily know that it was a police credit union. and we harped on what I call a brand principle of banking on a first name basis. And then we had copy all talking about, you know what, you have tough jobs as a teacher, as a police officer, as a firefighter, as a government worker. That's why we go out of our way to serve your particular profession. And that was the glue. That was the branding glue to put it all together, to begin explaining and promoting an image that people would understand, that people would want to come to. And then the nice thing, because their culture was a good culture, when they came in or talked on the phone or however they interacted with this credit union, they would receive an experience that matched that brand principle of banking on a first name basis.
I like this, and I was going to ask the question, when you work with these companies and help to figure out the answer, can we talk about your process on how you pull the information? Because obviously you need them to help to define what the culture is, or understand what the brand is, or hear what their strategy is. Your working relationship, what do you love about what you do when you're getting the nuts and bolts of the work you do with clients?
It's one of those things. It's interesting because many years ago I went to so-called consulting school. They actually do have a consulting school. It's 9 freaking days long, even on a Sunday, and they pound all kinds of things into you. But one of the things that they mentioned is that, after a while of doing this, you walk into a place for 15 minutes and you already know, where the problem is. You already know, what is the issue that you need to help them to overcome. But you need to bring it out of them. You need them to, in essence, see it and admit it and say, yes, this is a problem we need to work on, and therefore I need your help to do it. So in terms of the process, usually it's one of two ways where I find that big issue. One, as I mentioned early in our conversation, I do a lot of strategic planning. There are a lot of businesses, and I work primarily with service-based businesses, where they'll have a strategic planning retreat, and they bring their management and their board, and we go to some nice resort for 3 days and drink and have great food, and they use it as kind of a junket. And so what they do many times is we've got to find some clown that it's going to drive us through this program, is going to entertain us a little bit and not bore us, and also set some goals. But what I find in that process of truly facilitating and asking the right questions and saying, well, why didn't we achieve this goal? Why are we having a problem here? What is the true obstacle of us not implementing this particular service? As I ask those questions and I don't give them the answers, many times they find out that they don't necessarily have a strategy problem, that they have either a culture problem where there are employees that just won't implement the strategy that they create at this retreat, or they have a branding problem in that, we're really not driving the right business to our business. Our message or our visual or something in our brand is not working the way that we need it to work. So that's one process through the strategic planning program, where many times we go from strategic planning to a consulting type of retainer. The other way, and I love this just as well, is I have what I call a B+C+S audit. You probably heard, and many of your people in your audience have probably heard of the so-called brand audit that advertising firms will do many times.
Yes. All too many a time.
So what I've done is I've created a questionnaire, which is a brand audit, but it also digs into questions on the culture and morale, and also on the strategy, how they set it, how they implement it, and so forth. And through that audit and spending an hour with me after the report, whether it's video or in person, we get to pinpoint a couple of the real key issues that they have. And we can also see, all right, is it a brand problem? Is it a culture problem? Is it a strategy problem? Or is it a combination thereof where we're bleeding in a couple of different areas? But both of those particular processes, really help us hone into, what's the real issue here.
Ken, I want to ask the question, how does Ken drink his own Kool-Aid? How do you apply the BCS formula for your brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. And part of the answer is I don't. I do to a certain extent, but I literally have about 4 or 5 different mentors, and I found it the hard way early when I started doing consulting in 2001. Originally I thought that being a consultant or a trainer, that was much like being a great mechanic. That when my car was broken, I would just fix it. Same thing with my business. If, I found that there was a brand problem, a culture problem, or a strategy problem, I would just fix it. But after years of making a lot of stupid mistakes and hitting walls, I realized that analogy was pretty ignorant on my part. In fact, the last 3 or 4 years, I finally realized that mechanic analogy isn't the right one. That actually it's more like being an expert brain surgeon, and you do a great job on other people. But if you have a problem, you have a tumor in your own brain, odds are you probably don't want to do surgery on yourself. So from a brand culture strategy standpoint, I have multiple mentors that I go to. And given my background on brand culture strategy, many times I'll let them in on, this is where I think the problem is, or this is how I want to fix, my strategy or fix my branding issue. What do you think? And that always gives me advice in one of 2 ways. One, they agree with me, but they tell me exactly why, so that I truly understand it, because many times when you're in your business, you're too close to things. Or they say, you know what, Ken, you're way off base. I don't think that that's your issue at all. So the way that I handle my B+C+S formula is I go to other mentors and get their advice.
Ken, I think that is spot on. I think so often entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, people who've started their own company, who do the great work that they do, it's impossible. Like you said, a brain surgeon can't operate on himself. And it's so important that our listeners understand how important that is. And that's why it's great to bring in these outside sources who, if anything, can give not only the best type of advice, but also help you balance out all of the options and present things that you may not have thought about, which is a pretty cool seat to be in. Ken, I love asking this question of the guests. You have a successful business. You're speaking more and more. You're standing on cool stages and being announced by really cool announcers. And you're having all these great things in your life that are thriving. Ken, on the days when you're not quite firing on all cylinders, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Great question. I usually do one or both of 2 things. One almost always is, and I know this isn't a faith-based program, but I'll go to the Bible or go to another type of motivational religious type of book on Christ, and read, maybe just for 2 or 3 minutes. And that puts my head in a much better perspective. And sometimes in addition to that, what I'll do is I'll actually go to one of those mentors that I mentioned, where a lot of those folks have blogs, they have podcasts of their own, they have little training videos. One that I've been using recently, frankly, is from an individual that you may remember from New Media Summit, Christy Whitman. She's got some really quick 2 or 3 minute videos.
Oh, yeah.
And, sometimes I'll just put on one of those, and it puts me in a different perspective, a better perspective. And it helps me to thrive. And then once I've done that, then I always ask myself the questions like, all right, now that I've kind of gotten my head in a much better space, what's the most important thing that I can do right now? Let's block out everything else. Let's use my mind for, its best function and ask the question, what's the most important thing now? And 99% of the time, my mind will say, you need to do this, whether it's contact this client, or you need to work on this project, or you need to work on your brand or your website or something. But almost always that gets me back in, to use your words, a thriving mode.
Ken, and that's great feedback. And by the way, as you know, Christy's
Yep.
been a guest on this program, and I've caught those little blurbs that she does. They're pretty good. Those little messages, she'll shoot them out on social media, which is a lot of fun. Shout out to Christy. We'll give her a plug on the show. So let's do this. Let's do the admin part of the show. Yeah, big shout out. Give all the places our listeners can find you, social media, links for your book, for your website, for everything that you do. It will be in all the show notes, but it always sounds better and they react better when it comes from
the best place to go, if you don't go anywhere else, is simply go to my website, which is www.btcinc.net. Again, that's B as in boy, T as in Tom, C as in cat, inc.net. There's links to the book and other manuals that I have. There's links to a free book. There's links to my YouTube show and my LinkedIn and my Facebook and all that other fun stuff. That's the best place to go. The other place that I spend some time, probably my favorite social media site, is LinkedIn. And if you type in Kenneth Bator, you're gonna find me really easily. And if you have some interest in my book in particular, The Formula for Business Success equals B+C+S, I'm pretty easy to find on Amazon, either by simply typing in that title or just typing in Kenneth Bator, Bator, and I come right up.
Ken, I want to ask the signature question, and I want to hear what the answer is. Ken Bator, what is your all-time favorite movie?
My all-time favorite movie is Dirty Harry.
Okay. And why does Dirty Harry connect so much with you?
Yeah, I remember seeing it when I was very, very young. I was probably, like 6 or 7 years old at the time. And it was just, fortunately, I didn't see it. It's an R-rated movie, and it was made in 1971, Clint Eastwood movie. And fortunately, my parents were smart enough not to take me to an R-rated movie. But it was on regular television where it was edited, and my dad just put it on, and I was sitting there and watching it, and I was just like, wow, this is a guy that just gets things done. He doesn't care about the bureaucracy. He doesn't, care that, people are ticked at him. He just gets things done. I got to save the girl, then I'm going to save the girl. This guy has, is kidnapped a busload of kids. I'm not going to just go and give him money or listen to the mayor. I'm just going to go and get it done. And there was something about that, even as a child, that I always enjoyed. And to this day, even though I've seen a ton of great movies, that has stuck with me, and that it is and probably will, till I'm in the grave, be my all-time favorite movie.
Ken, I know for a fact you just made all of our production staff really excited. That's for sure. As you'll hear very shortly. So Ken, you're a big sports fan, I have learned.
Absolutely.
Very recently. And maybe you could share with your listeners where your fandom lies.
Well, I'm a Chicago guy, born and raised, lived there for about 40 years, and I'm only 25, so figure that out. Even though,
I was about to ask the same question, how that's possible.
Yeah, I was never good at math. But while I live in the Los Angeles, California area, I was born and raised in Chicago, and Chicago is just a great sports town. So I'm a Bears fan, a Blackhawks fan, a Bulls fan, and a White Sox fan, but not the Cubs. You got to choose a team when you come from Chicago, and I hate the Cubs.
So I'm going to give you credit here. I for those that listen to this show, they know that I'm actually from a baseball perspective, although baseball continues to diminish in my interest each year. I am a Mets fan, which is very difficult living in New York with all the success the New York Yankees have had over the many, many, many decades. And I give you credit for being the White Sox fan. I'm gonna give you the bald-headed bro hug and fist pump for that, because to be like the one that is kind of the other side of town, it takes a little bit in that town. Everyone in Chicago claims they're a Cubs fan. So
I think most people are probably a Cubs fan in Chicago, but I've got a very, very good friend and colleague here in the LA area who's originally from the New York area, who's also a Mets fan. So we kind of share that same bro hug that you mentioned. Is, we're basically cheering for what's in essence the second team in a major market. So we understand each other from that perspective.
Ken Bator, the man who has got the formula for success. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud and sharing your thoughts today. I know our listeners appreciate it, and continued success to you and having other people learn and how to implement.
My pleasure. It was great being on, Lou.
And to all our Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.